Welcome to the Casey Digital podcast. On this episode, we've got Clair Heaviside, who is the co-founder of the Light Agency. In this episode, we discuss lots of different things from company culture to driving a business forward and working in an agency in the kind of modern day, getting the work-life balance right, and also being creative along the way. So Claire, for those who don't know who you are, would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Clair Heaviside and I'm co-founder of The Light, a brand communications and digital marketing agency based in Manchester.
So how did it all start for you getting into the industry?
I guess unconventionally.
Yeah.
I come from a creative arts background, studied English and drama at university, and while I was there, I teamed up with some incredible women to launch a business called Odd Arts, and we worked all across the country and in South America running issue-based creative arts workshops for vulnerable and excluded groups.
What kind of art came out? I'm not big on the whole art scene, by the way. I'm not like the most culturally sound person, but what kind of art were we talking about?
Drama. Right. In the beginning, we used drama as a tool for engaging people around specific issues. So, for example, we would work in drugs rehab centres and run anger management courses using drama as a tool to get people to express themselves or to see the world through different eyes. And it was an extremely exciting, challenging time. The organisation is still going. It's now a charity, Odd Arts. I highly recommend anyone checking them out. Yeah. Little plug, oddarts.com, and supporting the work they do, because it is truly fantastic where the team have taken. From Odd Arts, I went over to Toxteth TV, which is a community film studio based in Toxteth in Liverpool, where I was creative director. Right. And there I was using film as a way of reaching out to young people in the community to help educate them in different creative skills and help them to tell their stories. And again, another brilliant way of kind of exploring creative ways to tell stories and to empower people to kind of reach out and get out there. So
it's a lot of performing arts, not because I hear creative and creative can be 100 different things, right?
Yeah.
So that is more in the performing arts, drama, as well as expression, in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was based on the work of. I'm really going off on a tangent here, but it was based on the work of a incredible man, the late Augusto Boal, who created a form of theatre called Theatre of the Oppressed, and he used theatre as a political tool over in South America, and as a result, changed laws through. Galvanizing communities through theatre, and I was fortunate enough to go over there into South America and work with him and his team and learn those skills and bring them back to the UK, and that was really where the company was founded. So my interest really and excitement around marketing is about engaging people and communication and being creative and thinking outside of the box, and I think all of that's come from my kind of arts background and my community background.
It's an interesting entry point into like the creative / digital arena, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they're coming from that kind of a background going into this space, apart from someone who got on the previous podcast, one of the previous episodes, Sarah McDowell, she came from a dance background, and she did like a form of African dancing. I was like, that's like so random. Like, you think a lot of people go down a traditional route of they go to uni, or they go to college, they go to uni and they study like creative or design or something like that. This is a different type of
it takes all sorts in our industry, doesn't it?
It does.
It's funny when I talk about it, I learnt my craft in prison, and then people kind of look at me and stop and think, whoa. And then
fashioning sharp objects out of toothbrushes.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess unconventionally has been my path into marketing.
So obviously there's clearly a creative output for what you were doing then is also a creative output for what you're doing now and what you guys are doing at the Light Agency. What's the part about working in marketing or working in an agency that you enjoy the most?
But these are my people.
Right.
I really feel that within this industry, I found so many people who are inspiring go-getters, who are desperate to make things and put things out into the world.
Yeah.
And whether they're doing that for brands or for themselves, I think it's really quite inspiring to be part of that community of people that are creating things. And I guess that's what really appeals to me. That's been my big moments of enjoyment and spark when I've been working with great teams who, a whole mix of creatives, all coming from different perspectives, all working towards the same goal. It's hugely exciting. And I think it's what draws people into the agency world.
Yeah.
Because, we've got to be a little bit mad, haven't we, to do the things we do and ride the roller coaster that we do.
Yeah.
And personally, I feel these are my people.
Yeah. I mean, so let's just contrast those two fairly, very contrasting, kind of going to South America and helping people gain confidence and do the things that they need to do through a creative art form versus, essentially making people money in a commercial standpoint. They're very different worlds, aren't they? And I've spent the majority of my time, like my first job was at Betfred, and that was in betting and gaming. So it was all about like making money for gambling, which I still, I don't know if it's karma or whatever. I feel like a little bit, I don't know if I feel bad about that now, but I feel like you're essentially trying to make money from a commercial gain, and it's not necessarily, like more recently we've done a bit of work with Forever Manchester, and we're helping charities who are working in like the local communities and stuff. So it's a different reward that you're getting from it. Well, how do you feel about that?
It is, I think for me, coming from the charity sector, I think it is really important to bring values into the work that you're doing, into the way that you work and who you choose to work with, your motivations for working with those people. And yes, we want to build successful businesses for our clients. We want to launch successful campaigns, and we want to hit our KPIs. And ultimately, we want to make money. And that's the industry that we're in. And that doesn't sit uncomfortably with me, because I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think it's about the way you go about it. And if you carry your values and the values of a brand and the way that you work with people, and you keep that on track and focused, then I think that the two you can have great ideas and you can make money.
It's an interesting moment in time, isn't it, in that respect? Because I think it's probably the most conscious the industry's been.
Conscious is a great word. I think really the idea of consciousness at the moment for brands and within branding, I personally find really positive. And I think that there's been a little bit of a backlash around, and I'm inverted commas, purpose branding. And we've almost ruined it by going on about it too much. But actually, I think it's a positive thing that brands are being more conscious and are holding themselves to account and are listening to their customers who are holding them to account. And forcing people to be more aware of sustainability and where their products are coming from and who they're using in their adverts and what advertising platforms they're using and why, what messaging they're putting out. And I think it's a positive thing, and I'm excited about it. I think I can see it becoming more and more important over the coming years, not least because customers are caring more, and particularly a whole younger generation of customers are very outspoken in holding brands to account over things like this.
And I think that it's bigger than it's ever been. However, there is a flip side to this, which I did have. We had a client workshop last Thursday, and I did go on a bit of a rant. There's 15 people in the room. I'm working with
a bit of a rant.
And most of it from the client, and they are how can I describe this without giving the business away? They basically have clothing that you can customize,
right?
But they've been doing a more eco and green friendly version of their product for like 10 years. And we work with another business who does like a dry dye. Instead of using water to dye fabrics, because it takes like 40 litres of water to dye a t-shirt, for example. That's one of the main reasons why fast fashion's got a really bad rep because they're just like not only using a shitload of water, they're actually then flogging that t-shirt or a garment or whatever for like 10 quid or 15 quid. And it's like, well, how is that going back up the chain? Like, how can that possibly work? So my little rant, which I won't get into too much now, was there is a frustration around this whole sustainability thing and this more kind of woke business mentality where people are trying to be more conscious, but they're using it as marketing messaging. And if you've always been a sustainable business, and if if that's a 15, 20 year heritage or even longer of people doing things in the right way, not just from a sustainability perspective, but like we said, being a bit more conscious, that's great. But if you're using it as a marketing message to then try and flog more products and not being genuine with it, I really have a problem with that. I really do. Because I've seen that recently, like a fast fashion business, which I won't name, but they're basically going, oh, this is our sustainable range. And it's like, yeah, but the rest of your range is literally fucking everyone over. Like, why are you trying to come across as this really kind of conscious brand?
It's the problem, isn't it? When things like, again, my inverted commas around purpose branding become a trend, because then everybody feels they have to jump on a bandwagon. And that's when you get these inauthentic messages around people's, sustainability and their processes, etc.
Yes.
I think that what we've got at the moment, and one of the positives of social media and the ability for smaller, sustainable, independent brands to build a following on social media and to educate their audiences and customers around what they've been doing for a long time and what they stand for, and getting people to really tap into that and care about that. I think that there's going to be a rise in that, and we will see, over the coming months, years, where this inauthenticity is going to get called out more.
And these, obviously, brands have to be more transparent now than they ever have done in history. So, I mean, good. We're living in a good time in so many ways, and I'm not going to hate on it. I just think that there is a flip side to it, and there has always been a flip side to it where companies will take advantage of it for commercial gain. Now, that is the thing that I just had a little rant about, but I'll leave it for now because this is about you.
Rant away, go on.
So obviously there's a transition there about kind of how you've kind of transitioned from one side to another, and I think a lot of what drew you to it originally was, like you said, it's a lot around bringing people together in the creative process, which I think is great. What were the kind of lessons that you learned in those early stages where you kind of anything that still sticks with you now, or something that you thought, look back on now and think, actually, I really benefit from?
I mean, I think I've only really learned them by looking back at things. Looking, you look back at your career and suddenly you realise that it's littered with all of these lessons that you wish you'd known at the time, but at least you've got them now. And I think for me, it's about saying yes to things, saying yes to coming on this podcast, for example, and taking opportunities. I think learning is key. I'm investing a lot of time at the moment into learning, into learning about myself, into learning about how great businesses are run, taking the opportunity to learn from people around you about things that aren't necessarily just the piece of work that's in front of you, but thinking bigger than that, and about, what's coming next and how can I be a part of that.
That's the challenge in agencies, isn't it? Because you've got to get the job out the door, you've got to make it profitable.
Absolutely.
You've got to try and make your margin.
I think there's been times in the past where I've certainly been, head down and really kind of feeling that what I'm working on right now is the most important thing in the world, and actually taking a moment to breathe and to step out of it and to talk to people is really important. And I think really about, working with great people who share your values is such an important thing. But I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is that it's only marketing. Nobody's died. So at times in my career where you can think, oh God, and this is all horrendous, and this terrible thing has happened, or there's something has failed, or the client doesn't like it, or we didn't win the pitch, oh my God, and it's only marketing.
It's very self-indulgent, isn't it?
It really
is.
Absolutely. And I think just as you get older, you can take that bit of perspective and just be like, it's okay, guys, nobody died. Tomorrow we will wake up and we will carry on again.
We'll go to the next pitch, or
Absolutely.
we'll work with the next client, or do the next campaign, or try harder with the KPI, or whatever it might be. No, that's a good perspective to have on things. How do you think things have changed during that period of time?
So I think some of it, I guess we've really kind of touched on about this idea of accountability, people holding the industry to account. Even as I was thinking about this mother care, for example, ad campaign. It was only in 2017 where they had, a little girl dressed as a housewife pushing a vacuum cleaner. But this year, Mother Care's ad campaign is all around post-birth bodies. Brands aren't allowed anymore to just put things out there because of the accessibility of channels to everybody, and they have to be held to account. So I think that's an interesting conversation that's happening in boardrooms with agencies and clients all across the country.
So the what's your take on the looking, or the portrayal of the first campaign that you just mentioned around making it look in a certain way?
Yeah, I think they went down a kind of very, I'm trying to think of the creative now, but they went down this very kind of 1950s style.
50s housewife campaign.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they've kind of had a bit of a check on themselves and thought, no, actually, what are we communicating then about our values and our brand and what we want to say, and that getting to the core of that brand positioning, I think people are being a bit more thoughtful around it.
Yeah.
So I think I've kind of seen that change a little bit. Technology changing, but never as fast as we think it does.
Yeah.
Or think that it's going to. I guess the accessibility of data and people being more tuned in to how things are working on a micro level, and clients being more concerned with how things are working on a micro level. They want live dashboards that will give them up to the minute tracking of how things are performing, and they'll want an analysis of that, and we can get that information. And I think that's good progress as long as it's being used in a relevant way. Yeah, we don't all get kind of carried away by it. But I've certainly seen that change since I first started working in the industry, when people weren't as aware of the whole glossary of metrics that are available to us at the moment.
Yeah. So Claire, talk to me about the Light Agency.
So we're relatively new. We're about to celebrate our 6-month birthday. Can we have a cake for that? I'm not sure.
Not from me. Congratulations. So it's a big step, isn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a milestone.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to reach 1 year. But I co-founded the Light with Don Carter. He's been on your podcast previously.
Yeah, really knowledgeable guy. I met him at we both spoke at an event here at U-Space, and it was as soon as I heard him talk, I was like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff.
He really does. So he's it's kind of yin to my yang in a way, in that his expertise in media and advertising and paid social in particular works really well alongside my branding and kind of creative background. And we worked together previously at Cube 3, agency in the Northern Quarter, and became a really kind of strong team as part of the digital marketing team there. And co-founded the Light based upon, I guess, our kind of shared values and ways of working. And I think I've said earlier on in this podcast around how it's so important to work with people who share those values, and we really do. I think around tenacity, transparency, teamwork as kind of core values of our business.
3 T's.
3 T's. I just invented a thing.
Let's draw a triangle or something.
Yeah. God, I just branded it. I think that kind of drive to make things happen, to bring campaigns to life. I really admire the way that he works in that way. And, we want the Light to be a really kind of holistic agency servicing clients who share those values as well. So I kind of sit on the brand communication side, and he's in digital strategy, and we're growing our team at the moment. So we're a team of 5 now.
Yeah, great.
And working with some really great clients, across the country, particularly in property, so residential and commercial property. We've got some clients in kind of luxury travel.
And you've been going 6 months.
So, I mean, we're
and you've got 5 people.
Yes,
wow, that's really good.
Yeah, so we're growing quickly, but we're both very kind of focused and driven and passionate about growing the light and what we can achieve together. So it's been a ride. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a ride.
It's interesting as well that a lot of people that I talk to, especially who are either entrepreneurs, founders, or directors, I think a lot of people say you've got to know where your weaknesses are. You know where your strengths are, but you've also got to be clear on what your weaknesses are. And I know Dom's quite an analytical, like I can talk technical and get quite geeky with him all day. He's definitely like that. Whereas if you're a little bit more creative, it's good, like you said, the yin and yang, and having that balance and within the senior leadership team is really important.
Absolutely, and the fact that we've worked together in the past, we already are, very aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses, and the ability then to be kind of open about those with each other. I think as a co-founder team, you have to have that trust around, this is where you feel comfortable, and I'm going to support you to do that bit, and this is where I feel comfortable, and this is what I'm going to take hold of. And
doesn't it feel good to work with someone where you can just cut through the bullshit as well? Doesn't that really satisfying when you just go, this is out of order, stop messing around with this, and I wish you'd stop doing that. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can't be like that with people.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think we definitely, I mean, that almost sounds like you've been overhearing our conversation. There is no bullshit. We absolutely kind of cut through all of that. And because our focus is on delivering great work, making sure our team are inspired, making sure that we're pushing forwards every day. So there's no time clarity, for faff.
It creates an efficiency of time as well.
Absolutely.
So that's good. So what's the big difference for you in founding and being a director of an agency versus, in your previous role where you worked for other people?
I mean, for me, I've come from an entrepreneurial background. I've had my businesses previously. So I think I've always had that bit of spark where I felt like it's mine, even though it wasn't mine. And I think particularly at Cube 3, I know you know Carl Barker, we were given the freedom as a senior leadership team there to manage our own departments, if you like, almost as mini agencies,
mini businesses
within their own right. So in terms of the shape of those businesses and the way that they presented themselves and the way that they worked across the business, we were given a fair amount of kind of freedom to go and do that. So I could bring that entrepreneurialism to that agency as well. Having said that, moving on to being a founder or a co-founder, of course, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it? It's
having the big job is a little bit like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit like everyone's like, there's a lot of people out there now, I think they call them entrepreneurs, where everyone like really wants to be like work for a tech business that goes to the next round of funding and then makes $1 million. It's quite rare that those things actually happen. I think that when people actually get into these situations, I know that there's a whole wave of more entrepreneurial thinking people anyway, just in the market, which is brilliant. And I think because of people like Gary Vee or whatever, it's kind of like an aspiration to be that thing. But I think because I've done the same thing as you in terms of being like a business unit head, and I've had like a team, a department that you're then responsible for, not an actual director. Jesus, it's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of strings that you have to your bow. You've got to understand finance, you've got to understand people, HR, clients.
It's terrifying. I mean, it is scary, and I think I'm fortunate, to have a great co-founder and a great team, and I think going out there on your own would be amplified that fear. I do, but it's scary starting a business, and I don't think it's ever going to stop being scary. So I think the way that I think about it is that this is the new normal. The new normal is that I'm going to have a roller coaster every single day where we're going to have these massive highs, and then we're going to be terrified, and then we're going to pitch in, and we're going to achieve something great, and every day is just going to be a little bit like that from now on, and hopefully at the end of it it will all be worth it. But, I think I've just adopted this mentality now that this is the new normal. Buckle up, enjoy the ride.
What are the things that, because from our initial conversation, although we've only known each other for half an hour, the initial conversations that we've been having, obviously, I can already tell that it's coming across that you're very passionate about company culture. what does that mean to you in this kind of modern day that we're working in?
A lot of things, really. I think representation's really important.
Yeah.
It's important for me as a female co-founder to build a business that is representative of the brand and consumers that we're working for.
Yeah.
I think that making sure that we're building a diverse workplace where people have the sense that they can bring their whole selves to work. They can be open about their failings and their fears, and that they have a supportive environment where they're going to be pushed to achieve great things.
Yeah.
I think that is the essence of the kind of culture that I want to make sure that we're creating at the Light. And I think these things can't be manufactured. They can't be. No, you can't just have Pizza Fridays and expect everybody to accept that that's enough to be happy about. Having said
Isn't that the agency like go to we need to create culture? What can we do? I don't know, pepperoni pizza.
I mean, pizza is the answer to a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to company culture, it's got to come from the people at the top. And I've been doing a lot of work on myself around bringing my whole self to work.
Yeah.
Being able to bring my fears and my being authentic in the way that I talk to people, so that I can kind of look my team in the eye and they know that they're getting the honest part of me.
Yeah.
And I think so. Yeah, those are some really important things, and I know they're not tangible things that you can say, all right, here we go, we're going to put a swing in the office. But having a really representative, different workforce who come from different backgrounds, who have different life experiences to bring to the table, who want to go on different journeys, and then making sure that the environment that they're working in is one that they can thrive in. That's where the magic happens of a company culture. And it's really, really hard to do, and it's not something that you can kind of you can manufacture in away days, although all of these things are important. Let's have away days, let's have pizza, but it's the actual way people feel about coming to work.
I think that's become more and more tangible over time as businesses, maybe a lot of corporate businesses have recognized this as well, big companies, that actually when you look at their kind of tangible, because a lot of what you're discussing is around people, and when you talk people, it can sometimes be subjective or emotional or unquantifiable, whereas I actually think these are direct kind of quantifiable result of what you just said. You have less people being off sick because of mental health or because of whatever else is going on in their kind of stress leading towards difficult health situations. You've got a motivated workforce who want to come into work, who actually you could also push the bar and say actually productivity, because I know that when the culture's right, you have it feels like everything, there isn't any it's not difficult to make progress. It feels like progress works much quicker.
I had the best. Someone said that it was Kat Funk. I'm name dropping now. Kat Funk, who is VP of Marketing for Europe for TK Maxx.
Right.
And she said, everyone should feel like when you come into work, it should feel like double art on a Friday, not double maths on a Monday. And that feeling.
I know what you mean.
And I want when clients come to work with us, or they know that they've got a meeting with us, I want them to feel that they're coming in to double art on a Friday. They're going to know that they're going to have some great ideas are going to get thrown around, and they're excited about coming in. They're excited about being part of a team, and they know that something's going to be created. And no offense to people that love maths, and because some people do love maths.
Finance director just turned off.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with liking maths or Mondays, but I think that really sums up that feeling of it's unquantifiable, isn't it? I want people to feel that way.
Yeah, I think this was actually brought to light with me probably more than ever. We work with a business called Roche Martin, who are an emotional intelligence training business. Fascinating business. They do leadership programs and everything else, and they work with huge businesses. They work with Sky across their kind of global network and global leadership team, and they train people on emotional intelligence. the 7 kind of key points of emotional intelligence, like empathy, self-awareness, and all these other things. And I found it fascinating. That was really, I think it was about 4 years ago, probably. It really opened my eyes to this whole thing around. It is a bit of a movement now where it's, work-life balance and all the other things around mental health, more awareness around developing emotional skills as well as technical skills, because you can be really great at Facebook ads, but if you're on the verge of a nervous breakdown because you've not hit your KPIs, like you're not going to be a productive employee. So it's about balance, right?
Going back to my, where we kind of started this podcast, working in community sector and working in prisons, that's where I'm really starting to see that background come into play now that I am a co-founder and I can build the type of business that I want to build, because it is about trying to tap into the things that are going to inspire people, bearing in mind every single one of us has a multitude of fears and issues and things going on outside of work, and work isn't everything. But how can we, as responsible employers, make sure that we're providing really inspiring, safe places when people are in work and allowing them to kind of achieve their best and feel good about themselves?
Absolutely, yeah. When we look at the kind of campaigns that you've been working on, and the things that you've got the most enjoyment out, or have been successful, what are the things that really stand out to you?
For me, it's always when the magic happens and you're working with great creatives. So we're fortunate at the moment. I'm working on a client at the moment in partnership with a fantastic creative studio in London, and we have a client we work on, a luxury travel client, who is they're always hungry for more ideas, and they're always hungry for more content and more creative, and everything that we present to them, by hook or by crook, they manage to kind of get through. And so we've done some fantastic.
That's a really healthy way for a client to be, right? They're going to get more out of their agency, and they're going to get more return on investment for that fee or whatever they pay you guys.
Absolutely. And they're really a client who dares, isn't it? I mean, that's what you really want. So that's when the magic happens for me. That kind of sitting in a room, being able to kick around ideas, with people, and having the client involved in that process. We're working with another client who's a real kind of tech disruptor. They're disrupting the HGV drivers industry for drivers and hauliers, with a piece of technology that connects drivers and hauliers, removing the middleman and ensuring that drivers get paid and get great jobs, and hauliers get great quality drivers. And as a client, they're fantastic to work with, because this is a difficult industry to break into. It's very traditional. And so they are another one that's we're always really, really hungry for new ideas, and how are we going to do it? And he's always jumping on, what can we do next, and ringing me up and with more, he's bringing to the table great ideas for what we can do next. So that's when I think, for me, when campaigns really, really work, when you've got that dynamic. But of course, as well, a nod towards Dom and his analytics side of things. We've got to make sure that it's, achieving its goals as well.
How do you find that process, transitioning from? Because I'm assuming, like, you guys will work together, or your team will work together. In terms of because when we work on clients, I always find that the most successful campaigns that we work on, or the things that we've done best, actually, we're following the best practice process kind of thing. And a lot of the time, I feel like when you're winging it a little bit, either because you have to as an agency, or because the client doesn't have the budget or whatever, I always think that you don't get as much return from what you're actually doing. Whatever the campaign, whether it's building a website, going on a photo shoot, or or driving digital marketing, campaigns and traffic. What do you when you're going through in those examples of successful campaigns that you're discussing? How does the process work from that perspective? Are you guys fixed in your process? Are you more fluid?
I'd say we're pretty fluid, because we're growing, and for before we made our hires, it was myself and Dom. We're working with other partners as well, but at the same time there is a process. So it's not just kind of sitting around and hoping a good idea falls from somewhere. And it starts with what we're trying to achieve, and being really, really clear on that with the client as well.
Clarity is so important.
Absolutely, yeah. And that stops us all from going off on tangents or delivering something that's, you know, completely off the scale. So once we know what we're trying to achieve, that's when we work a little bit backwards and start to develop the ideas. And that's where I kind of take a little bit of the lead.
Yes.
Coming up with whether that's kind of brand key messages or creative routes, which I'll expand out. And we'll try and see which of these routes has kind of got legs.
And you like conceptualize the ideas.
Yeah, start to conceptualize those ideas, and maybe at that point we're bringing the client in again to discuss those routes with them and see if any of them catch fire. And then we start to really distill those routes down into the channels, and we work them up against you know, the KPIs, making sure that we're measuring, and that reflects back into the objectives. Within budget, etc. And so it's this kind of converge diverge diagram of working with the client and working with each other. So I mean, there is a process, but you've got to, rules are made to be broken, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be a bit fluid.
Because there's always the ideal, and like I said, I think I do look back at some of the ones where we have had to make things up on the fly. You really see how talented the team is, and I think our the team that I work with anyway, you know, you always see them come into their own when actually you're not giving them a get out. You know, like there's no get out. It's like, we've got 4 hours. Like, this is what's going down. What have you got? Let's go.
You'll never hear anyone complain more than me about not having enough time to do things. But to be honest,
that's such a creative thing to say. You know,
I know. I work best with the tightest of deadlines. If you give me 2 weeks to do something, I mean, well, just don't give me 2 weeks to do it, because I work well with a sense of pressure. And I think it really squeezes the creativity out of you, doesn't it? But I think as well as that, there's got to be a framework, an objective to what you're trying to achieve, and that's without that, that's when it can kind of get frustrating.
Because we are talking about flexibility, but flexibility in certain areas. It's not. This still has to be, you know, it can't just be like mad. Anything goes.
Yeah, I need to know what we're trying to achieve. Know who we're trying to attract, and I need to know what success looks like for the client.
Absolutely. When you look at throughout your career, and we're looking at, you know, influences, whether that's people or other businesses or brands or whatever it might be, you know, what are the kind of biggest influences throughout your career?
I mean, it'd have to be people that I've worked with. So, you know, at Q3, I was really fortunate to work with a senior team of fantastic, inspiring people in their own right. So Nick Morgan, who was head of strategy, Rich Whitehouse, who was head of tech, and Paul Owen, creative director. And that I learned a lot from all of those people. I would say, you know, people like Ali Hannon, who's the CEO of Creative Equals. You know, that this is an organisation that I'm really closely connected to now. I'm doing the Creative Equals course, and these are women. And this is really, really kind of close to me. Again, being a female co-founder, these are women who are really pushing for change within the industry and are holding agencies, brands, and everyone to account around diversity within the workforce, and making huge changes. And we're seeing a shift in how, you know, larger agencies are accommodating women when they come back off maternity leave, for example, or how inclusive their hiring processes are, or not just having a sea full of white men as creative directors, for example. And I think these things are really important when you think, you know, like
white men are so greedy, you know.
But I think that there's some really inspiring women in particular, you know, in the industry. You know, in Manchester, we've got, you know, Sandy Lindsay, Tangerine, Cindy Gallop, who's another, you know, inspiration within the industry, and my team now, you know, so Dom and the rest of the team at The Light, you know, if they weren't influential or inspirational people for me to work with, then they wouldn't be sat around the table. So,
absolutely.
You know, there's a whole range of people I think have had a really critical input in my career. That's a whole nother podcast.
I mean, I always find it interesting because I pretty much know 80% of the people you just said then, but I think it's always good to recognise that, especially if you're a founder, co-founder, or a senior person in any agency, you've got there through the help of other people.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think it's something that I've felt myself, and I think it's something I always like to ask people, because people help people on the journey, and I think that's something that's quite nice. Throughout. There are a lot of people to look up to as well. I think more from a female entrepreneur in agencies. There are a lot of people who can be looked up to in the Manchester agency area. However, I think we can all agree that it's still not where it needs to be, right?
And I think it's more kind of looking nationally as well. I think you've got 64% of consumer purchasing in the UK controlled by women, but only 36% of the senior leadership across the industry is female. For example, only 12% are creative directors. And there's lots of reasons for those. There's lots of reasons for that. But I think
changing systems is not an overnight. Like systems and the way that society is formed. It's not an overnight process. But I'm really glad that we're on this path to where where we're going. Obviously, to a more positive.
Having a really, and it's not just about women. It's about BAME, people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, people with disabilities, whether those are mental health disabilities or physical disabilities, and just being more representative and more considerate in our hiring processes, I think, and making advertising and the marketing industry a really welcoming place for those people. And I think that's kind of our duty. And you're in a senior leadership position in your agency, and I think making sure that we're creating welcoming spaces for those people, and taking the initiative to put ourselves forward and talk about them, and not be afraid to talk about them. So be on panels and be vocal about it. And I'm certainly been inspired by people like Ali Hannon, who and all of the Created Equals team, London based, but I think that I've really been inspired by that group that I've become a part of, who are pushing for this representation, whether it's older people or people from minority ethnic backgrounds or women.
When you kind of look at the kind of day to day, because we've discussed quite and thank you, very broad topics that, to be honest with you, I've not really touched on yet on my podcast, which I think is really good. None of the previous shows have gone into this level of depth and detail, although we have touched on some of the subject matter. If we were taking it more to like a granular level, like more of a day-to-day kind of thing, what kind of, have you got any like routines or rituals or anything that you go through on a day-to-day to keep you at your best?
Yeah, I get up at 4 every day and I say my mantras. No, I'm joking, your face.
Oh, sorry. I get up at 4 every day. It's because my kids wake me up.
No, I'm very fortunate in that I live in Disley, which is a lovely village on the edge of the Peak District, just by Lime Park.
Yeah.
And I've lived there for just coming up to a year now, having moved out of the city centre, and with my dog Ben, who's an Instagram legend, Ben Heavy. So I'm very fortunate in that I have the open space to go back to, and in the past few years I've realised how important that is for me to be able to have that, being around greenery, being able to access the hills, and so I guess my morning starts with picking up Ben's poo down by the canal and taking him for a walk, and I find that a great way to start the day and end the day. Not so much the poo bit, but the walking bit. Taking him for a walk, and just having a little bit of headspace before I kind of jump on the train and come into the mayhem that can be the city centre and the office and everything else. So not so much rituals. No, there's no kind of yoga at 5 a.m, but I think it is important to find your space, whatever it is. For me, it's the outdoors, hiking, running, walking, just being out with my dog.
Clearing your head. You want to talk about like work-life balance and other things like that. I think because you've constantly connected to the entire world through your phone. I think that sometimes it's good to just really turn things off.
Absolutely.
Switch off. get that downtime, because if you're not careful, you can go back to things and you can check, I'll just check this. And I'm the worst for it. I'm like checking podcast listens and do they like? You know what I mean? It's kind of like
validate me.
Yeah, no, it's like, I feel better now. And it's just like, I think ultimately, if the industry that we work in as well, client service, servicing clients' needs is another aspect of that as well, which
it's really
can be draining.
Yeah, you have to build up your defenses and build a fortress around yourself as well, because otherwise, exactly like you said, it's always on, and always on is no good for anybody. It's not good for your clients. It's not good for people that you work with. Whatever your space is, you need to find it.
So as far as books or piece of content, TED Talks, videos, anything like that, what are the most kind of shared pieces of content that you like to share with people?
So I guess what I'm hammering everybody with at the moment, and anything by Brené Brown. So the Brené Brown books, the TED Talks, if you've not watched it, I think it's on Netflix, for God's sake. If you've not watched it, what are you doing? About vulnerability, and a lot of that whole idea of kind of bringing your whole self to work and to your relationships, I think is really, it helped me a lot to think about, the kind of person that I want to be and the type of, leader that I want to be. My most recent one that I spammed like about 12 of my friends with was, it's a podcast called Unfuck Your Brain. Sorry. It's Cara Lowenthal. And it was one particular podcast she did where she talked about, this is the part where. Yeah. And this whole mentality around, if something's going wrong in your life, rather than thinking, God, this is the end and everything's going to collapse in on itself, you just separate out and you think, this is the part where we don't win the pitch. Yeah. And then tomorrow we get up and or this is the part where I have an argument, or this is the part where, and you become that kind of narrator to your life, and it helps you to cope with things when challenge.
So it's like you're in a voice telling you, this is the part where
things
I
fall
need to
apart.
deal with it, or I need to do whatever.
Yeah, and then next there will be the part where I build it all up again.
So it's like a toolkit to deal with situations.
It's a really nice way of thinking. And then Work Like a Woman, Mary Portas, I think is a book that I'm just about to send out to everyone I know. So if you've not read that, I think that's a great one. It's okay as a man
to read that.
Absolutely. I think it's essential reading as a man.
Think more like a man.
Yes, I think absolutely. I'll lend you mine.
With obviously, I think as well, I think it's important that when we do share pieces of content that people then pass that on to other people. Do you find that when you share these, like you said, you're battering out there to people, do you actually get any feedback from the things that you share with people?
Yes, I do, because the people I share them with are the type of people I know are going to respond to it. Yeah. And the type of people who, maybe we've had a conversation about something similar, and then you can. So I think it's hard when people are saying all the time, you should read this, you should read that. And the last thing you want to do is make people feel really pressurized that there's so much information out there for us all to consume. But I think if you're having a conversation with somebody and you think, God, this has really made me think of them, then that's the point that you should send it to somebody.
It's helping people, isn't it? And I think whenever, I make a recommendation to people, I always try to do it in a way that I think it will benefit them, not just like a preachy forcing something onto people. It's got to be like no, this will really benefit you.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's all about, knowing who you're giving it to and why you're giving it to them, and that makes it so much easier to follow up. That one situation in your life that we were talking about, and I sent you that, how did that help? Or is it an opener to a conversation that now we can have a conversation about that thing that's bothering you because I've sent you something as a conversation starter?
Yes, absolutely. And if you could put anything on a billboard which would reach a lot of people, billions, let's just say, people on the planet, but it wasn't for commercial gain. It's a quote, it's a word, it's an image, it could be anything. What would you put out there?
So I think 15-year-old Claire is going to love me for saying this, because I think it would be a Kerouac quote, which has really resonated with me over the years, and it's from his book On the Road. So he said, because in the end, you won't remember the time you spent working in the office or mowing your lawn. Climb that goddamn mountain.
Brilliant. That is really powerful.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and it's meant a lot to me over the years.
Yeah, because I mean, you basically forget about the micro moments, and it's the bigger moments that you'll look back on and remember.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, climb that mountain is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I think people can take that a lot of different ways as well. You can use it in different ways in your life.
Absolutely. So take on the challenge, do something massive, or just, get out of bed, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's a really lovely interpretation of it that you've just given around, not letting the micro weigh you down. Because in the end, what's absolutely important at the end of it all is, did you strive to achieve your goals?
Yeah.
Did you strive to make yourself happy? Did you strive to love and be loved and all those important things?
Yeah. I think the word that I like to use in these instances, and it's the same when I'm referring to data and also with my life in, like my work life, but then also like my personal life, is it's meaningful. Like, what are the things that are going to actually mean something?
Yes, yeah.
Because if you're not working towards that, like, why are you doing it? If you're not happy in your job and it doesn't mean anything to you, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like, just do something else.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good kind of quote to put out there to the world. With regards to kind of any tips and advice and where you get your kind of maybe more from a day-to-day in in your career and stuff, what's the kind of best source of content for you?
Connecting directly with other people and having real conversations.
Okay.
You can scroll Twitter endlessly, and you can jump on every website and be a part of every newsletter in the world, but being part of groups and collective, I'm part of the Agency Collective, which is a really helpful and supportive group of agency founders, and I'm learning a lot from being a part of that group. Creative
It's
Equals,
like a shared learning kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a very lively and engaged Slack group where you can literally ask anything to anybody, and everybody is extremely supportive of each other, and events, etc. And people on the end of the phone if you need them. And I think it's about trying to build up your network as much as you can with real life connections and real people, and that's really important. So the Agency Collective has been important to me. The WhatsApp group of Creative Equals. So shout out to any of those fabulous women. If they're listening to this podcast, they better be. But that's a great supportive environment and group to be a part of too. Just getting out there and being friends with people in the industry.
Yeah. Because that's how you receive kind of content and tips kind of thing. And I think, to be honest with you, I do the same. I do a lot of the same. Like I mainly get a lot of my insights for what's going on from the people I work with or people in the industry and stuff. So I definitely kind of resonate with that. With regards to people starting out in the industry, what if you're a graduate or like you're coming from a different way, coming into the kind of creative and digital agency world, what would that look like in terms of advice to those people?
Well, I recently was at the University of Manchester doing a talk to people who are interested in getting into the industry, and so I was having these conversations, and it's really hard to say to people, do X, Y, and you will achieve Z. You will get there, because everybody's path is going to be different. I guess the biggest advice I can give is to make stuff and believe in the stuff you make, and have confidence in the stuff, even though it's not necessarily perfect. But just to make things. So, I kind of got into marketing as well through copywriting and through writing, and the confidence that it takes to then write that and then put it out there. I think that's really, really helps to build up somebody's skill and craft and confidence, and just try stuff and try and get it out there. So if you're really into music and you really want to get a career in social media, then get to gigs, start an Instagram account of the things that you love and you care about and that you're good at, and share it and connect with people within that community and build it and show what you can do. I think doing those passion projects, I think particularly before you get into the agency world, I think they're the things that set candidates apart. If someone's coming in like an entry level or an apprenticeship or whatever. I remember one of the girls who's in our team,
We went to the Juice Academy. We hired an apprentice. We've got a couple from there now. But the reason why I hired her, and I'm like, don't get me wrong, this is genuine. Like, the reason why I hired her was she had to stand up and talk about herself. Like, they all have to kind of stand up and talk about themselves and tell us something interesting. And some of them were like, and I want to work in marketing, and I want to be a marketing manager. And I was like, you really don't, because it's like quite a stressful job. You don't know. And the girl who ended up hiring, she literally just said, I really love trainers, and this is why I love trainers, and these are the trainers that I'm wearing now. I just love trainers. Yeah. I'm like, that's really... I mean,
tell me more about those trainers and why you love them.
We work with retail clients, and don't get me wrong, there was we work with businesses who sell shoes and other things like that, and that was at the back of my mind, but at the foreground, it was more like, you're really passionate about something. Yeah. Like, I could see you working in like a retail agency environment. Like, that makes sense. So I think it helps to set people apart when they're doing things like that.
Definitely.
And finally, just looking back to giving, almost like if you could go in like a time machine and give yourself some advice to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't be so afraid. Or at least embrace the fear and do it anyway. You know,
like this podcast, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So exactly like this podcast. I think worry less about what other people think. Nobody cares. Yeah. You just, do you. You're the best asset that you've got. Yeah. And I think that, we're all out there with our insecurities and fears of failure, but actually it's the moments that you fail where the most growth comes. Yeah. So I think I would just, put an arm around 20-year-old Claire and just be like, it's okay. Yeah. You'll get there.
That's really good. I think that's a really good place to end. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That was really interesting and a different kind of insight to a different perspective to some of the previous conversations that I had. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. It's Clair Heaviside. Odd spelling of Claire, Clair, and odd spelling of Heaviside as well.
I'll put it in the thing. In the show notes.
And Twitter. You can hit me up on Twitter. Again, it's Clair Heavy on Twitter. My ranting's there as well. It's probably a good way to reach me.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Casey Digital podcast. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, my username is @CaseyDigital. Search for Paul Casey on LinkedIn or search for @CaseyDigital on Twitter. If you'd like to email me and give me any feedback or want to get in touch with one of the guests or anything like that, please just email caseydigital@gmail.com. Any feedback is welcome. And please make sure to like, subscribe and share with your community. Thank you.